Hey guys, Andy here from Mediocre Hobbies, bringing you a tutorial for the D&D player. So I know that a bunch of my videos would be super helpful for a lot of people playing D&D and wanting to paint up D&D miniatures. Unfortunately, without the correct title and the correct tags, people who play D&D will never be able to see or find my videos unless they really go rooting around. So I'm going to try and make a couple of videos here dedicated to D&D miniatures with D&D tags like the titles and stuff to make it easier for those people to find it and hopefully help you guys get your miniatures painted up and into a dungeon quick and easy. So that's what I'm going to do here today. I'm going to start off by painting off a humble goblin, although he's a little bit special. It comes from a new Kickstarter called the Legend of Keepers, which is the sponsor of today's video, but we'll get more into them later on. For right now, I just want to show you guys how to get some basic colors onto a miniature in a very easy to follow way. No crazy techniques, no amazing talent required, just simple step by step. So I hope you guys find this video useful. Before I jump in, I just want to say a huge thank you to all of my active patrons. Without you guys, we'll be able to keep the lights on and the cameras rolling. If you're on the fence and thinking about joining my Patreon, some of the benefits you get for becoming a member are a private Discord server, and of course my favorite one is a personal video every single week. So all patron members get a extra video every single week. So that's 52 extra videos a year. So I think that's pretty cool. Okay guys, without further ado, let's get into this very special goblin. Okay, with a video like this, I'm going to try and show you guys the bare minimum and easiest way to get some color on this miniature. So after you've gotten the miniature constructed, you want to give it a light color, a bright gray or a white. And then we're going to be using watery paints like contrast or express paints or anything like that. So for me, I just went for Plague Bear Flesh Contrast, which is a nice dark earthly green color, which makes a perfect base coat for a goblin skin. One of the key things to remember about painting with paints like this, these watery contrast style paints, is they do tend to run a lot. So precision is something that is not the easiest thing in the world. You will make some mistakes. To try and mitigate some of these mistakes, I always paint from kind of lightest to darkest in paint order. The reason for this is every subsequent layer is darker and can cover up any mistakes you made in previous stages. If I'd have started with the darkest color, and I'd got it on the skin, for instance, the skin color, that Plague Bear Flesh, wouldn't go over the mistake I made with the darkest color, and you'd have a little bit of a problem. So Egros Dunes was the next contrast I used, and this went on the majority of the rest of the model, to be honest. I wasn't 100% sure which bits of the strapping and webbing and cloth and fabric were going to be what color at this stage. So I thought a base coat of all with Egros Dunes was a great idea, as this is quite a light color. And I knew any of the colors I was going to put on top of it, any of the darker browns were going to go on top of this, and we're going to give it great coverage. So including the wraps and sandals he wore, his gloves and armor, headband, hair, the entire barrel, pretty much everything except for the explosive parts of this bomb miniature, I gave the Egros Dunes base coat. This is a very interesting miniature, and it will definitely tell a story on the tabletop. I can just imagine you telling your players that a swarm of goblins has charged into the cavern that they are currently in. You put down maybe 5 or 6 warrior goblins with bows or swords perhaps. If your players aren't smart enough, they don't pay attention, they don't roll a perception test, maybe they don't realize that one of those goblins is actually an explosive goblin. But if they do manage to do that, then you swap out one of those warrior goblins with this miniature, running towards them full tilt, screaming, off his head on mushrooms with fuse lit explosives in both hands. They'll only have a turn or two to respond to this. Depending on the results, depending on what could happen, this could be a story that they tell about D&D for quite a long time to come. And I do love that that happens with D&D. It can be a passing moment. The archer of the party takes a shot, it hits the goblin right between the eyes, and he explodes off in the cavern distance on no effect. Or he gets right in amongst you and a party member is grievously wounded and has to be carried out of the cavern. Stories. The right model, the right characters, the right time tell the best stories. And of course, not all people who are interested in D&D are interested in miniatures. If you're the DM and you're creating the characters, maybe it's not so simple for your party to see what's going on. So I like to go for the kind of cartoon aspect of it. And by that I mean all the explosives on these guys are going to be painted bright red, because they've watched Looney Tunes and cartoons as a kid, and they know that red means, you know, danger, explosion, that kind of thing. And it makes that part of the miniature seem a lot more obvious. Where in actual fact, the barrel on his back is probably full of grenades, which are probably silver steel cased. The red just adds a little bit more to it. Lead belch, which is a silver paint, was then used for all the metallic parts. Now, because this guy isn't holding any swords or shields, there's not that much. The banding on the barrel, and then he has some buckles and stuff holding up all of his straps and stuff like that. So nothing crazy. So right now we're up to about 5 colors used, and this goblin has paint on all the right areas. The last thing I'm going to do is shade the miniature now. And shade is another even more watery paint that only sells in like recesses and cracks and crevices. It adds a really nice bit of contrast and depth to the miniature. And as you can see, I applied to the whole thing. While that is drying, I'm going to tell you a little bit about this week's sponsor and the company that produced this miniature.
Legend of Keepers is an epic collection of unique dungeons crafted in 5e mechanics and featuring a menagerie of fantasy heroes and monsters. This incredibly rich video game-inspired world is brought to life for your tabletop as a customizable and infinitely replayable series of monster-run dungeons that can be played from 3 different perspectives. The Legend of Keepers campaign book is extremely versatile, allowing players to play a traditional campaign while role-playing as the heroes, or by turning 5e on its head with the players fielding monsters defending the dungeon from Game Master-controlled heroes. Finally, if you wake up one morning and choose violence, players can compete against each other, some controlling the heroes, others the monsters, with a game master there to keep the campaign civil. Each of the 4 dungeons can be played in all 3 variations, providing an enormous amount of replayability. The Kickstarter campaign is also offering over 100 highly detailed fantasy STL miniatures inspired by the classical heroes and creatures from the Legend of Keepers video game by Goblin Studio. Each file comes pre-supported and can be used in the Legend of Keepers 5e campaign or to breathe physical life into your own adventures. This campaign is also introducing Stonecraft Terrain, Lazy Squire Games' all-new STL dungeon terrain. More than 200 pieces are available, more than enough to craft any dungeon, great or small. Whether you are looking for new role-playing adventures to experience with your friends, a digital fantasy army you can print at your leisure, or both, the Legend of Keepers 5e campaign book and STL miniatures campaign has you covered. Pledge now and keep an eye out for exciting new stretch goals and daily unlocks as the world of Legend of Keepers journeys from your PC to your tabletop.
Okay, after the shade has been applied and dried, this is what you're left with. And I think this is an absolutely stunning result. If this is your first miniature or you've got hordes of miniatures ready for a campaign soon, I think taking it to this standard and leaving it is perfectly acceptable. I think everybody who comes and plays on your table or sees the miniatures that you bring to the game is going to be very impressed. And to be honest, I was going to end the video here when I first started kind of planning the video. I was just going to show you the very basics, but I was enjoying the sculpt so much that I decided to take it a step further and show you guys a bit of the layering. And all I'm going to do is go through 2 layers of green on the skin, a light layer of brown on like the leathers and stuff, a bone color for skulls. That's kind of it really, but it will make the miniature pop a little bit more. So what I'm doing here is a technique called layering. And what it is I've taken a slightly brighter green than the skin that's already been applied with the base coats. And I've applied it to the skin, leaving all of the nooks and crannies and all the bits in between muscles nice and dark. Then I jump up to an even brighter green again, trying to stay in the same kind of tone and hitting an even smaller percentage of the skin. This just adds the illusion of kind of like depth and texture. This is something that on a normal horde miniature, like I talked about earlier, those 4 or 5 goblins burst into the cave, I wouldn't be doing this step on. It's mostly reserved for, I feel, party members when you're painting the 4 or 5 characters that are the players of the game or some heroes or bosses you might want to put a little bit of extra effort into. And as you can see, the skin here already looks so much better, so much crisper, so much clearer that he is a little goblin. Mornifying brown is that lighter brown I was talking about that I'm just going to add a little bit of layering to kind of like belts and stuff. all of those previous steps that we did with that Gorgonta fur. I'm just going to give a really light. As you can see, I'm not trying to cover the entire part. It's just a few touches, kind of where the most amount of light on the miniature would hit. Give you some seriously nice results. And it is one of those things where I had the idea of what this video was going to be. It's supposed to be about the basics of D&D painting, and just has turned into almost like a passion project, a little bit of a love story between me and this exploding goblin, where I suddenly wanted to put in all of my all. And I think you will find that if you're enjoying the painting process, you will find yourself wanting to push on and add a little bit more detail, a little bit. Maybe I will paint his teeth. Maybe I'll put a little bit of red on his eyes, or bit of blood effect on his base, or the jewels on his knife might actually get highlighted. Since how they're, you know, it's a magical knife, and I want people to know that when they look at my miniature that he's carrying something special. Zandri dust was used for all of the kind of tan parts of the miniature, all of that other fabric that is in the dark rich brown. And technically this is the color that should have layered up the barrel, but the texture on the barrel is so perfect that I don't think I would make it look any better. If I tried to layer it up, I think I might have made it worse, so I just left it alone. I think that barrel looks great. A little bit of Yashapti bone was used just to add a little bit more color to all of those skulls on the base. The last adventuring party that came in here trying to mess with this goblin clan met with an ill fate. And I myself are what I'm considered to be like a visual learner. I much prefer seeing things, and that goes for D&D as well. I mean, pen and paper is amazing, and I applaud people who can play an entire campaign through with just pen and paper. But me seeing visual aids, whether that's on D&D Beyond or something like that, being able to see what a room actually looks like and where the characters are and where my companions are, is a really big help for me. It's a super important thing that helps me enjoy the experience of D&D more. So that's why I think miniatures, or even just kind of like, you know, drawn on sketches of rooms, really helps me do it. I mean, I did a 13-month long Curse of Strahd campaign that only finished up last year, and I absolutely loved it. We explored that book front to back, cover to cover, every nook and cranny of that world. But my DM was amazing. He had D&D Beyond rooms for every place we went into, and the results were just spectacular. I have so many good memories. This is the finished bomb goblin. Absolutely delighted with him. I cannot wait to try and get him onto a tabletop to do something silly and funny very soon. I hope you guys enjoy this introduction into the world of miniature painting for D&D players, and let me know in the comments if you'd like me to do more videos on more D&D characters. And there we have it, guys. One crazy exploding goblin ready to make a real mess of your party and be a real nuisance to the entire team. It's definitely a secret weapon of any good DM, is having some crazy encounters lined up, and I think this guy fits that bill pretty well. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you give it a like. Ask me any questions you have in the comments below, and I will get back to each and every one of you guys. If you like my content, you've never seen me before, think about hitting that subscribe button for all future videos. It only takes 2 seconds out of your day, and it means the world to me. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. Make sure you check the links below for the Legend of Keepers Kickstarter and check it out for yourself and see if it's something that you're interested in. And I will see you guys in the next video.